You guys have been seeing this Volta Power System in videos for months now and have been asking about it for months and months and months, and it's finally time to share all the nitty-gritty details. Per usual, this type of video will be broken down into sections, and we will have those sections bookmarked in chapters down below. You can use those to skip ahead, watch a section over, whatever you want to do. Also, per usual, this video is going to have a lot of technical information that I might get wrong or might change or something after the fact. Whenever that happens, we will have that information down below in the description and in our blog post highlighted in a nice yellow so you can see any updates since we put this video out. So be sure to check that out. Don't worry, it's not going to be just all me talking about this system. We are going to put this thing to the ultimate load test and see if I can break it later on in this video, so be sure you stay for that. Before I do jump into all the cool tech stuff, I do need to just talk a little bit briefly about the history and genesis of this project between us and Volta and Grand Design RV, because we've been teasing you guys with tidbits from this system all year, and we're going to need your feedback to determine the ultimate fate of this system. For us, this story started almost 2 years ago in January of 2022 at the Tampa RV Super Show. At that show, Volta and Grand Design had a co-branded toy hauler there with a Volta system in it. It was really cool. They even had an electric ATV in the garage and a charging port for the ATV, and they had the Nitro-Connect system set up on a Ram truck. I'll get into what that is. It was really, really cool. Later that same year in 2022 was when we were working with Grand Design on the floor plan, which became the 410TH, this guy right here. And we thought it was the perfect opportunity to get a Volta system out in the wild and beta test. Before they put this system in, the only other system that actually had a functioning system was that one from the Tampa RV show previously that year. We've been working with Volta Power Systems both remotely, and they've even come up to the cabin. They've come to campsites. They came down to Florida. We've been working with them on and off for the entire year, tweaking this system and testing it. I think you're going to find that it's a pretty incredible system. But here's where it gets a little bit complicated. We're not privy to any of the details, but Grand Design decided to go a different route for their lithium solar power system in their Momentum line. That system, I've seen the specs on it. It does look like a good system. We will probably review that at a future date. But what we have right now is a prototype system that may or may not see actual production. Without that OEM aftermarket option right now, the fate of this system as a strictly OEM aftermarket upfitter system is a little bit up in the air, and that's where we need your help. Watch through this video, get a feel for all the tech, and then let us know in the comments down below if you like it, don't like it, answer any questions you might have down there. Also, if you are seriously interested in it, I'm going to have a link to the Vice President of Sales, John at Volta. You can email him directly and give him your thoughts. I think if they get enough positive feedback and interest in this system, which I think they will, you're going to see it's pretty cool, I think that will determine and possibly help the system get to production. So enough about that background and where we are right now. I want to get to this really cool system and show you all the cool details. Because I have a ton to go into on this system, I'm not going to go into the high-level overview and then fill in the blanks like I sometimes do. If you want to see some of those high-level how-to things like, you know, Ohm's law and Watt's law and what solar is and how that all works, I'll link our previous solar video down below. I covered a lot of that there, but I'm not going to go into it here. Let's just jump right in. As I'm going through this, you know, our old system is the only thing I really have to compare it to for our own personal use. So I'm going to be referring to that just a little bit. I'll have those videos linked down below. That was our system with our lithium-ion batteries and our Victron system. I'll have those linked down below if you want to refer to those for reference on some of the things I'm going to be talking about here also. Let's start right here. This is the Volta battery bank. This thing is lithium ion. I forget the actual chemistry, but I'll put it on the screen, but it's the same as you'll find in a lot of electric vehicles. This thing's capacity is 18 kilowatt hours. That's a ton, but what does that number actually mean to you? I mean, all the battery manufacturers seem to want to advertise their battery capacity in amp hours. And honestly, I really wish they didn't, because amp hours is only half of the puzzle. The other half of that equation is the voltage. Now, most of these batteries are 12 volts. So when you're talking about a standard 100 amp hour battery, lithium ion, you're talking about that 100 amp hours times 12 volts. That is going to give you 1200 watts or watt hours of actual use, or 1.2 kilowatt hours. Now, if you do the math, the 1.2 kilowatt hours of your standard little battery versus this 18 kilowatt hours, this thing is equivalent to 15 of those batteries. And you can see here, its footprint and its size are nowhere close to the size of 15 giant batteries. In our last RV, we covered the entire top about the size of this with about 10 batteries. Well, not about, it was exactly 10 batteries. And that only gave us 66% of the storage capacity that we have right here in this little box. So as I go through this, I'm going to try to stick to watts and kilowatt hours because that's just how energy is measured. If you look on the back of any appliance in your house, if you look at your electricity bill, you're getting billed in kilowatt hours, not amp hours. So I kind of wish the whole industry would just stick to watt hours and kilowatt hours, but hey, I don't run the whole battery industry. Now, sticking with our comparisons, just so you can kind of get a feel for this system, your standard 12 volt battery is, of course, 12 volts. This system is a nominal 51 volts, and you're going to see that I actually measured 57 volts when it's running. So what does that really mean for me? Well, if you watched our What We Do Differently video, when we built our system, it was all 12 volts, and if I had it all to do again, I would do 24 or 48 volts. So this one takes it a little bit further and goes to 51 and 57 volts. The advantage there is you can get more power with less amperage. You got higher voltage, so the amperage can come down and equal the same amount of power. What that means is lower amperage means smaller wires, and you're not going to have to deal with these giant 4-aught cables like I did in my last system. You can see right here, I believe there's 1 or 2-aught cables. You're not dealing with just tons and tons of current going through super thick wires, generating lots of heat, losing a lot of energy along the way to power your systems. Additionally, when you wire 10 batteries together like we did in our last RV, that system had 3 batteries from our previous installation, then we added 7 to it. Now, that wasn't an ideal situation. Ideally, if you're going to buy that much battery, they should all be bought together and, charged up to the same amount, and try to keep those things balanced. And therein lies some difficulty when you're talking about interconnecting separate batteries where each battery has its own BMS or battery management system. This guy here is one giant battery. I've seen the display on this thing where it's actually doing its balancing. Every cell of every segment of lithium ion in here is being balanced across the whole system. This thing is super, super cool, and it's super, super safe. And speaking of additional safety, you'll notice this thing isn't contained in plastic like most of your batteries over the counter off the shelf. This thing is in steel. It is solid. So that's the battery. It's a beast. Let's move over here to the inverter. Volta doesn't call this an inverter, they call this a power distribution hub, or PDH, and you're going to see why, because it does a lot more than your typical inverter. But like most higher end inverters, and like the inverter in our old RV, it is both an inverter and a converter, which means it does both DC to AC, meaning it will convert your battery power to power that you can use in your RV where you plug things in and use your ACs and things like that. It will also convert AC to DC to charge your battery. So it goes both ways, it does both. But the inverter inside this PDH, or power distribution hub, is a little bit special in a couple of ways. Number one, it's designed to work with this higher voltage, like I said, at 57 volts, 51 nominal, coming from this system. So it can take advantage of that higher power over smaller lines using higher voltage and lower amperage that you're getting from this battery system. This inverter, again, as a prototype right now, is officially rated at 7 kilowatts with a surge up to 21 kilowatts. But you're going to see when I do my testing, that's really an under rating. That's a very, very safe rating, because we push it way beyond that. You're going to see it's pretty cool. I suspect that if this thing goes to production, it'll be rated at least 8 kilowatts. Lastly, the thing that makes it different is it puts out its AC power in split phase 240 volt power. So it's just like the power you get when you connect to a 50 amp pedestal. Now, that's really important for anything that gives more than 6 kilowatts of power, and here's why, and I'll try to go into this without going too far into the weeds. If you've got a 50 amp RV, you've really got a 50 plus 50. A 50 amp RV is split into two segments. They don't share anything at all other than the neutral, which I'm going to get to. But you've essentially got two 50 amp circuits in your RV for 50 plus 50, or a total of 100 watts you could actually use. So that's what makes 50 amp RVs so much more capable than 30 amp RVs. It's not just going from 30 to 50, it's going from 30 to 50 plus 50 or 100. Now, the thing that the two sides of your RV do share is a neutral. And I'm not going to go into sine waves and constructive versus deconstructive interference and all that stuff. But just know that if you go over 6,000 watts, if you divide 6,000 by 220 volts, you get 50 amps. So that's what the capacity is. Now, if you go over 6,000 watts total, let's say you go to 6,000, you've got a potential for 100 amps on your neutral line if they weren't out of sync, if they weren't split phase like that. So this thing providing split phase power allows it to go over that 6 kilowatts. It's absolutely necessary for this type of power. The bottom line is it is a beast. Our last inverter in our 397 was capable of 3,000 watts, and that was enough for what we used it for, which was just a single AC and maybe one other thing. If you did more than that, it would crash the system. And I've only seen maybe one or two other inverters that put out split phase like this one does. It's pretty cool. Also, zooming out from the inverter inside to this overall power distribution hub, you can see there is an extra input on here for another DC battery input from Volta. So if I wanted to, I could stack another 18K right on top here, plug it right in, and I've got 36 kilowatt hours. And of course, that'll change based on what they actually come out with, but it's really cool that they've got two inputs on here, so it's easily expandable to add more capacity in the future. Additionally, you can see there are 3 solar inputs on this thing. In our last RV, when I built it all out ad hoc, I needed 2 solar controllers to basically regulate that voltage from the panels. Solar panels put out variable voltage, and bring that in before I could put it into our DC system. I had to bring it down to 12 volts. This thing does it all in there, and I'll be honest with you, I've had the top off this, and I've looked inside and tried to figure out where's the converter? Where's it going on? I don't know. I really don't. We've got our solar plugged into here, and it's adding to the system, but there's a third one on here. We could add even more. Now, this prototype system as configured can handle up to, I think, 1,800 watts of solar. Future ones will probably do more. You're going to need a little bit more than that in some giant installations. But the cool thing is you don't have to go getting extra equipment to build a whole system out. It's all right inside this PDU. You can see this PDU actually has 6 inputs. The 3 solar that I showed you, the 2 battery pack ones that I showed you, and there's also a third connection here, and that is for yet a third flex pack, a third battery pack, or it's currently being used for what's called the Nitro-Connect. And that's the thing that you guys have been seeing in our videos when I'm hooking the truck up to the trailer and I've got this cable. And you can see it's the same on both ends. It's got a positive and a negative and a control cable. But you guys have been seeing me hook this thing up and say, what is that? Is that like air brakes or something? What is that? What that is it's a special Volta alternator in our truck that provides an additional 7 kilowatts of power over this line. Again, that's another benefit of this high voltage, lower amperage setup is you can have cables like this carrying 7 kilowatts. And for comparison, 7 kilowatts, our Onan generator was 5.5 kilowatts or 5,500 watts. So that alternator in our truck is supplying a ton of power. And that has been really cool. You've probably seen us mention the fact that we travel now with this Nitro-Connect system with all 3 ACs and the water heater and the fridge all running as we travel down the road. That means we can show up to our overnight, let's just say we're boondocking at our harvest host or whatever, we show up at our overnight with the AC on and the RV completely cooled down in the heat of summer, the battery is still fully charged, and we just set up and unplug and we are good to go. But even with all that awesome coolness, I do still have some reservations about this system, and I'd like to hear your feedback and see what your thoughts are on that. As you might have noticed here, we don't have a generator. The truck is our generator. Now, I mentioned that the Nitro-Connect provides 7 kilowatts of power, but that's at a high idle. You know, we can't just let the truck sit at a low idle. It doesn't really generate really any usable electricity. And it varies between, you know, low idle and high idle, providing more and more power. The drawback there is if you get this thing maxed out, it's at a pretty high idle and it's pretty noisy. I think it's quite a bit noisier than just your onboard generator, so that's a little bit of a drawback. The other drawback of having the truck as your main generator is it's also a lot of times your daily driver. So if you're in the middle of a charge cycle and you want to run to the store or you want to go out for the day, you're taking your generator with you. Now that may not be an issue if you time things right and make sure you're fully charged before you leave, but it is a consideration you have to take into account when you're dealing with this system versus just having an onboard generator. It's one of those things where it's got advantages over here and disadvantages over here, and you got to kind of weigh out what you might want to do. I think the ideal setup would be to have both, because you could still have an onboard generator here, just an extra power source along with the truck generator. The bottom line on the Nitro-Connect for us is it's really cool, and it's great on travel days. But outside of travel days, I think we would rather have an onboard generator. I mean, you can also run your onboard generator while you're traveling. We used to do that all the time in our 397 when we would want to maybe run a couple of ACs and not have to worry about, you know, the inverter running low or the battery running low. So you can do that as well. I think, I'm not sure about the future of the Nitro-Connect and if that's going to become an actual thing or if that was just kind of something they were testing. But let me know what you think about that down in the comments. I'm really curious to hear. Enough talking, let's go inside and do an experiment. Okay, it is load test time. Now I've done this before with like just the ACs, but this is gonna be my first time really trying to just push it all out. That sounds weird. Push it to the max. I have disconnected the RV from shore power, completely unplugged it, so we're running strictly off of the Volta Power System battery bank. So let's start applying some loads here. It's a bit cold out, but I'm gonna turn on all 3 ACs one at a time to start, and we're going to kind of flip around and see how the energy usage goes up and see how much it can handle. I'm going to crank it down to 63. Alrighty. Man, jumped right up about 1.4 kilowatts. Crank that down into the 60s. Just kicked on. And we're now pulling 2.3 kilowatts. Woohoo! Alright. Let's go crank on the garage. I just heard it kick on. Okay, so all 3 ACs have been running for a while, 3.2 kilowatts. We can see that we've got estimated power until 6:47 p.m. That's pretty cool, running all 3 ACs for 5 hours. That's pretty good. I mean, you're never gonna really do that in real life. But let's see what we get. Let's turn on this Dyson space heater right here. We are now up to 4.3, 4.2-ish kilowatts. Now let's turn on the fireplace heater. Ooh, yeah, now we're up to 5.8, 5.9 kilowatts. This is already way, like, doubled what we had with our other Victron system. Wow. 7.5 kilowatts we're drawing now. 7.6, holy cow. Wow. Both heaters going, fighting it out with 3 ACs, running the microwave. That is amazing. So what I want to do is I want to add another load. I want to see if I can get this system over 8 kilowatts. You know, it's only rated at 7 at 48 volts, so I don't really know what it's going to happen. Okay, all 3 ACs are still running. Both heaters are still running. I opened up the refrigerator a bit to get that to kick in. I ran the hot water for a while to get the water heater to kick in. I'm now sitting at my 7.5 kilowatts with no microwave running. So let's kick in the microwave and see what we get. Woohoo! 9 kilowatts!
21 gigawatts!
Holy cow. 9.3. All right, I'm gonna bring it down because I don't want to like set the system on fire. Okay, now we're sitting at a load that would be more appropriate or normal for us boondocking. And we've done this over the course of the year extensively. So, you know, we pull into a spot half of the time when we overnight, even at a campground with power, we just don't even plug in because why bother? So right now, running the main AC, again, while it's running, the refrigerator I think is running. We could put the water heater on propane if we wanted to. But we're good right now for about 11 hours. We're saying it's 2 o'clock. We could run like this till 1:03 a.m. Now, one thing you have to remember is when you're running loads like this, the AC is not going to run constantly unless it's really hot out. So it's going to cycle on and off. I would feel comfortable, and I have felt comfortable, running the main AC, making coffee in the morning, doing all the normal stuff without ever hooking up the power all through the night and into the next morning and part of the day. It's super, super awesome. That was amazing. What did we get up to? Like 9.4 kilowatts? Holy cow, that's cool. I was super, super surprised at how much power we got out of this thing. I thought it might kind of top out and you know, go into overload at like 8 kilowatts. But man, 9.2 kilowatts? I think this thing will easily be rated at 8K with, you know, temporary surges over 8K. Again, we only ran this thing for maybe 5 to 10 minutes at that level, but it handled it like nothing. Now, I want to cover some things that I'm sure you're going to want to know, like the price, for instance. I also have a few things where I want to see a few improvements. Now, I want to reiterate here, this is a prototype, and some of these improvements that I'm going to talk about are already in the works, but I just wanted to make you aware of them and get you thinking about them, you know, for when you look at the system in the future, hopefully. This first thing on my wish list is very, very important, but it is already in the works and it's already a known thing, so it's not really like it doesn't have it. But that's power share / hybrid mode. And I want to mention it because it's something you should look for if you're looking for a power system like this. And what that is let's just say you're at a state park or something and it only has 30 amp power available. You want to use that 30 amps that's available, but you want to be able to run everything you normally would. Well, hybrid mode means that the inverter, the power distribution unit, the inverter in there will take that 30 amps at 120 volts. So what does that work out to be? I don't know, whatever the wattage is. I'll put it on the screen. It'll take that power that's available and use it. And then anything over that, it'll take care of it. It'll pull it from the battery. So as your power use and your power availability come up and down, you know, once your availability is higher than your use, it'll charge the batteries. Once your use goes up, a couple of ACs kick on, it'll take that from the batteries and use it as extra power. And that's called power share. It's also sometimes called hybrid mode. And we're going to be testing that in the future. Let me know if you'd like to see that test in a future video. My second wish list item is kind of an interface and control thing. And this is just me being kind of geeky. You noticed when we were doing the testing that we've got an app and that app connects over Bluetooth, and that's really cool. The Bluetooth module is actually right up here, so it reaches the truck and I can see the Nitro-Connect system charging. I can see our power system while we're going down the road. I can use it in the RV, etc. There's also a control panel that mirrors the basic functionality of that inside the RV on the wall underneath our LCI1 control. And honestly, I just wish it had a bit more information on it. While I can see the actual wattage going to and from the battery, between the battery and whatever else, usually it's going to be this power distribution unit, I can't see like power coming from solar. I can't tell how much is coming from shore power. I can't really tell how much is going to DC loads or AC loads. I got a little bit spoiled by our Victron system in being able to see all that in a nice graphical interface that really looked really good and showed me a lot of information. Now, I realize that level of detail is probably in the 10% of geeks like me who just really want to see all that information and go, ooh, look how much was going here and blah, blah, blah. It's not that useful. So I kind of get why they were going with a little bit simpler design with a gauge and stuff on this. My hope is that maybe in the future there will be some kind of show advanced features option in there to show us geeks some of that cool stuff. The third thing on my geeky wish list, and this is a little more mainstream, I think, is remote access. Right now it's just Bluetooth, but I would love to see the system either talk to your Wi-Fi like we have, or talk directly to cellular, out to the internet, so that you can use the app remotely, see your power situation from anywhere. And that's all for my wish list. Again, it's geeky and nitpicky, and to be completely fair, I love this system. It is a beast. We don't have to worry about power ever. It runs everything as you saw. But what about the price? If this thing goes into aftermarket like we hope it will, how much will it cost? Well, it is prototype, like I mentioned, so I can't give you an exact price. It hasn't gotten to that point in its evolution yet. But I did talk to Volta, and I said, I just need a ballpark. And I've heard 30K thrown around, but I think that was with the Nitro-Connect. And we were thinking right around the $25K, $25,000 for this type of setup with 18 kilowatt hours. Now, the Nitro-Connect system would be more on top of that. The Nitro-Connect system was a huge pain. You might say, oh, it's just an alternator. But the thing is, you got to make this alternator fit on every model of truck and every trim of truck. They had our truck for a week because we've got the platinum trim, and we've got adaptive steering and all kinds of pumps and extra alternators and stuff already on there. It was maxed out. So they did take a little bit of time to figure out how to mount this thing and get it installed in the truck. And that is going to be a bit expensive, and that's honestly another strike against the whole Nitro-Connect thing, I think. That would be difficult to support and maintain. Now, I know that $25,000 is a lot of money, but let's kind of break it down and see where we would be if we built a comparable system using off-the-shelf parts. Right off the bat, I did some looking online and comparing different brands, and 18 kilowatt hours of battery alone is going to be about $14,000 or $15,000. And that's going to give you just those batteries. You still got to wire them and interconnect them to your 12, 24, 48 volt or whatever, and get them all together. And then you're dealing with obviously a much bigger footprint. And that again was dealing with the denser, higher capacity. Well, I didn't do this calculation with 100 amp hour batteries. I used the 270s, 280s, the 300 amp hour batteries. So you're really starting with a little bit denser footprint than, a whole bunch of them like I did in our last RV. So we're at 14 or 15 grand right away. Now, I've only found a couple of 48 volt inverters that do split phase, and those are going to run you about $3,500 also. Again, this is just the parts. You're going to need some solar controllers. That's going to be probably another couple of grand. And of course, you're going to have all of this stuff designed and installed. Probably again, another $5 grand. I don't know what they would charge, but it's a couple of guys with several days of labor to do this install. You're easily getting to that 25K range. So all that is really just to say that I think this system will be attractive and competitive in that market. I think it's going to really kind of define the higher end of power systems, but that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Those things really help us out a lot. We'll see you next time.